Budgets always felt like a restriction to me, but now I see them more as a healthy financial boundary. In this week's episode, we're going to talk about budgets and boundaries. I'm so excited for this conversation. Welcome to the Female Finance Collective podcast, where we encourage women to have open and honest conversations about all things money.
I'm Jen, and I struggled for many years with debt and feeling financially overwhelmed, so I know how frustrating it can be.
And I'm Mary Lee. As a financial planner, I've had the privilege of working with hundreds of women who've transformed their financial lives.
Hey, I'm Sybil. I built my dream life traveling the world and creating financial freedom on a teacher's salary.
Let's start the money conversation. I love this conversation too, Sybil. I'm excited about it because we talk about budgeting a lot, but I know that, and we've also said this before, budget feels different to different people, right? For some people, it feels like a consequence or a punishment. That's how it used to feel for me. But the truth is, if we're using our budgets correctly, they really are an empowering tool to help us reach our goals, get to where we want to be, all of the things that we want to do, right? Whether our goal is to avoid accumulating debt, like whatever it is, the budget is the tool to help us get there. And I love thinking about our budget as a boundary, right? Because boundaries to me are flexible and budgets are also flexible. And I like that we can set up our budget in a way that tells us this is a boundary that absolutely cannot move, but this is a boundary that can move a little bit for me. So today we're going to cover why those boundaries matter, like why they're important. We're going to talk about thinking about your own personal budget. Where might you be missing a boundary? Like where's the place that you might want to put one in? Thanks. I mean, that happens to me sometimes.
Totally.
And then we're going to talk about communicating and honoring our boundaries, because if we don't talk about them with other people, if we don't really make them a priority, then it doesn't really, what's the point of having them, right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, exactly. This is going to be juicy. Okay, let's go. So, why do financial boundaries matter? Well, we want to think about boundaries, budgets as an in the moment, a present now kind of way, right? So, let's just kind of define what we mean by a budget first. So, basically, when I think of a budget, now that I've gotten over the restriction aspect, I think about I track my expenses so I know how much money is going in and out. And then I look at the big categories. How much am I spending on housing? How much am I spending on cars? How much am I spending on all the aspects of my life? And then I can set a budget. I'm doing air quotes here, saying I want to spend this percentage or this amount of money in this category, right? And so the reason we want to budget, and at the Female Finance Collective, we promote budgeting, and it's helped me get over that being a bad word, because it's not, it's a boundary of saying, I'm not going to overspend in this category, right? So, and that is the boundary. That helps me when I make those spending decisions every day. That is the budget limit, right? And like you said, it should be flexible and change month to month or year to year as you're going through your tracking, but it helps you avoid overspending. It helps you not feel resentment against things you may have spent on or not spent on. And it just really keeps you aligned with your priorities. Like, what matters to me? What do I value? And thinking consciously, conscious spending, we talk about that a lot here at the Female Finance Collective, helps me set that boundary, right? I usually spend about this much money. I want to stay within that boundary. This is really powerful stuff for the in the moment. So like you said, we can meet those goals. We can do those future things that we want to do. But every single day we have spending decisions, don't we?
Every day.
Every day.
Yep.
Yep.
And I think that the value of looking at your budget and thinking about it as boundaries, that I think that's a really powerful way to evaluate it, right?
Yeah.
There might be a certain category where you're like, this is a hard line for me. I just absolutely will not spend more money on this category. this is fine, right? And maybe that is clothing for you. And you're like, you know what? I have clothes in my closet, clothes I like. And so I'm not going to overspend this line for me. I don't need to do it, right? And sometimes those are, as I like to say, a hard conversation that we have to have with
Mhm.
ourselves, right? Like, look, you don't need another pair of sneakers, Jen. This is a conversation I have to have with myself all the time because I love sneakers. And I'm like, I probably don't need more, right? But that doesn't mean I don't want more, but that's a boundary I need to set because I would rather fly somewhere on a vacation than have 10 more pairs of sneakers in my closet, right? So we can kind of create these boundaries, aligning with what we're valuing and also then thinking about the ones that are flexible. Maybe your grocery budget is a little more flexible because you're like, you know what? Healthy eating is important to me. It's something I really value for my family. And I want to make sure that the boundary line there is a little bit flexible. If I need to spend more there, I'm comfortable doing that, right? So you can kind of think about it in that way. And then the next step that you want to do once you've kind of looked at where your boundaries are now is figure out where they're missing because you may have already done some of the things that we just talked about, but you may have some where you're like, oh, I don't even really have this on my budget. I just free spend on whatever it is, right? There may be something that you just enjoy. Oh, this is the one I'm the worst at is spending on my dogs because I'm like, oh, this is a fun thing that'll keep them busy while I'm working. Oh, this is a fun thing, right? And this is a really simple example, but that is a boundary that is missing for me on some level because I just want my dogs to be entertained and happy and not bothering me while I'm working, but also them be having fun. And so it's this whole thing for me that I go round and round. So that is a boundary that's missing for me that I need to be more thoughtful about spending on my dogs, right? And some of us probably have those boundaries maybe with your kids. If you have a baby and they have super cute baby clothes, right? It's so hard. Or like your kids in college and you want to send them all the care packages and you're like, hold on, this is like, is that a boundary I need to put in place or am I okay with flexing on that a little bit?
You just made me think of a boundary that I wasn't identifying, that I need to identify immediately. My daughter's off to college again on Thursday, and we're moving her in and we're to her first apartment. So we're trying to thrift many things. And I've just been like, we're saving money by thrifting. We can only get that for that, or let's, do this or that. But I really haven't set enough of a budget or a boundary to say, and we will spend up to X
Mhm.
amount, right? So, what are your priorities from this list? Because yesterday she's like, we still need this and this. And I'm like, well, we're not going to be able to get everything. But I just identified a little bit of a missing boundary there. I thought I was paying attention to it, but if I get a little bit more intentional and add up what we've already spent on her new apartment and then set that boundary before Thursday so we don't buy a lot more last minute stuff, especially when we get to Boulder and there's not as many thrift stores and stuff. So I'll already be like, we already met our budget and boundary. You can spend some of your own money. We can wait a few months. There's strategies we can do. But I love that we're having this conversation right now. So thank you. You just helped me find a missing boundary.
Oh, perfect. We all have them, right? Even if we think, oh no, I have a very strict, rigid budget. There are always things that we don't think about, right? There aren't 7,000 category lines on our budget. And so there's going to be things that kind of come up that aren't normal, right? We aren't always moving our kid into their first apartment. That's not a budget
Exactly.
line item, right? So
It's not a
there's a
line
lot of
item
dorm
yet, but
shopping and all of that. Yeah, it's not something. Also, if you only have small kids and you've never done back to school shopping, you may not have even considered how expensive that is, right? All the
oh, true.
supplies and the backpacks and the clothes and the shoes and all of the things. So there are always going to be things that are popping up that we just never
Mhm.
experienced before.
Yeah, completely agree. And so the third tip is to communicate and honor these values, right? Is this conscious level of thinking about our budget, thinking about our spending, thinking about our income, thinking about our boundaries. What do we want to follow through on, even if it's uncomfortable? We talk a lot here about like short term sacrifices. They're not so hard sometimes when we have dreams, when we're meeting goals, things like that. And so when we communicate and we talk with friends, that's what we're all about here is like having these conversations what comes out of it. Hopefully we've triggered some great ideas for you already. It's so helpful to help you honor those boundaries and stick with it.
Yep. And just like this conversation did for us, it will help you come up with things that you may not have considered, right?
Yep.
And you might share things with a friend or a family member that they may not have considered. So don't let it be like this weird secret thing, right?
Right.
It like should not be. I just saw this really interesting post from a woman. She is building a business, and she said, I think one of the things that keeps women from having successful businesses is we aren't talking about the money part,
I
right?
completely agree.
And so this,
That's what we're
let's
trying
make
to
it,
change.
that's right. Let's make it normal to talk about money. Text your
Yep.
friend, hey, what are budget line items that you think about that maybe not other people have thought about? Or hey, I just added this to my budget, or I don't have a boundary about how much money I spend on this category. How do you handle it? Like, don't be afraid to ask those things, right?
Ask us
Let's,
below.
yeah, ask us. We're happy. If you don't have somebody to chat with us. We are happy to help you with this. We really would like you to take an action step on this today. So, what we want you to do is just write down one financial boundary that you want to either set for yourself or evaluate. Maybe you're like, I've been kind of flexible on this one, and maybe I should be a little more rigid. Maybe it's the opposite. Or maybe you're like, I don't really have any boundaries in my budget. I like try to stick with it, but and maybe so you need to set one, right? But take an action step today somewhere around this boundary conversation, right? Pull one piece of this and take action on that today. Boundaries are meant to protect you. They are meant to protect your hard work towards your goals, whether that is an active goal of avoiding accumulating debt or whether it's a future goal of putting a certain amount of money away for retirement or a vacation or whatever thing you're targeting. But the boundaries and the budget are meant to protect you and help you stay focused on your values and what matters most. And we can't wait to hear how you're doing that. So if you have a boundary idea, please share it with us. We would love to hear it. And I promise you, it will help someone else too, right? We all
Hmm.
can learn from each other. So share with us on all the platforms, wherever you can find us. And we love hearing from you. So don't hesitate to reach out. And we will check in with you next week.